And here we are in person. I'm Andy in the United Kingdom.
And I'm Scott, and I am also in the United Kingdom.
Yay. Welcome, Scott.
Hey, Andy,
it's been a pleasure having you here.
Yeah.
We're using a slightly different microphone this week, so we do apologize if the sound is not quite as good as normal, but...
although we get to talk over each other without a delay over the internet this
That's
time.
true. This is the Tea and Timbits podcast.
We got excited.
I forgot where I was, yeah. This is the Tea and Timbits podcast, global perspectives on business development to help you prosper. This week, we're continuing the theme of...
prospecting, sales tactics. Yeah.
Relationship selling.
Yeah,
today.
we're going to do relationship selling today. Yeah.
Great. Before then, do you have a story for us, Scott?
I do. So I am here with you in person because I also had some business to do over in Dublin recently, and it was great. I'm sure that sort of the experience and the conversation there will find its way into future episodes. There was a lot of good content and a lot of good conversations. Met some new people. If I were to provide a little bit of feedback or sort of constructive critique of the way that it was organized, the content was lacking some connective tissue. It was a lot of good information, and the agenda was just kind of, I think there's probably some good thought to how it was structured. But we kind of went from one session to the next with a bit of a disconnect between themes. And at the end of the conference, there was a couple of days, and this was a pretty intimate group. It all made sense. Like it all fit together by the time we digested it all. But you could tell if there'd just been a little bit more intention behind the structure and organization of the different sessions, that the audience would have probably digested it with a little bit more clarity and confidence. So I think the story here and the takeaway is when you're in that kind of a situation, or even in a smaller, sort of more compact situation, even a single meeting, and I know I've talked about this a million times before, you've got to think about the narrative that is gonna kind of help you communicate. And I think that the event would have gone just a little bit, like it was great. But if I'm going to sort of work in the margins here and add a little bit of improvement, it would be, think about that red thread, that connective tissue, the arc of the narrative that is going to help sort of elevate everything that you're trying to communicate. Some conferences wouldn't lead themselves well to that kind of structure. It is a bunch of disconnected content and you kind of go in and out of sessions. But this kind of thing was, we start on one morning, by the end of the next day, we've gone through a progression of information. And I think if there'd been a little bit more of an outline of like, hey, everybody, we're going to start with this. We're going to get to the next thing. And we knew what all the session titles were, but just a little bit more of like, here's how we want you to digest the information. Here's why we're going to tell you what we're going to tell you. Here's how it's going to lead into the next thing. Yeah. So that and then at the end, we're going to kind of tie a bow around it. It would have had so much more impact, but it led to a few moments of confusion and tension that didn't need to be there.
Because again, I think in those situations, people are looking for some sort of, even if they don't realize it, they want to know where they're going.
Yeah.
They want to know what the purpose is, and they want to know, so that's the same for each session, not just for the whole thing.
That's right.
But for each of those sessions, people will benefit from having an understanding of what's going on, why it's going on, and what they're going to benefit from at the end of it.
Yeah, so that's right. That's exactly right. It was just trying to make sure that, because there were a few sessions where people you could tell they were a bit confused. They were getting a little anxious, like, oh, this isn't resonating. Why are we talking about this? This isn't what I understand in my market. But then there was another session later that kind of tied it all together, which we didn't know was coming.
No.
So, yeah.
That's difficult. Today, we're going to be talking about relationship selling. We had 4 topics today that we were going to...
We've got a lot to pack in. I think it's 5. If I glance at my phone here, that's giving us a cue. We've got... done that as well. Yeah, and then I knocked it over. Leveraging warm introductions, word of mouth, cold calling / door knocking, collaborative partnerships and account-based marketing. So it's all kind of a broad theme of relationship-based selling. We could probably do a whole entire episode on each one of those.
We
So
definitely could.
yeah,
And we might do.
and I think we've done some of this stuff before. But let's get into why you think all those are related to each other, and what do you think some of the strengths are?
Well, I think if we if we focus on each one of those, but on a very high level, in terms of warm relationships, that is essential. Don't forget your network. Don't forget who you already know, and who you trust and who trusts you.
Right.
So it can be former customers, it could be friends.
Right.
And I know people talk about, oh yeah, you should try and test your family, and not necessarily sell your products to the family, but let them know what you're doing. Let your friends know what you're doing. And very often they go, oh yeah, I know someone who needs that service. I know someone who might be able to do that. Or if you know that, one of your business partners or friends or colleagues know someone else that you're trying to get in touch with, then utilize that, because those are warm introductions that you're going to be able to, make the most of, and that are most likely to lead to much more of a valuable conversation with those people in the future. And anyone who's actually reached out to you to say, we're interested in your product or solution, or we have this problem, well, they're also quite warm. So make the most of those. And
and I think when I'm thinking about leveraging warm introductions, it's also about asking for the networking opportunity. Hey Andy, good to see you again. By the way, this is what I'm up to these days. Just keep it in mind. Do you think there's anybody that like just a gentle, like, you're not going, hey Andy, I need 5 people from your network. It's just like, by the way, if I don't tell you what I'm doing and that this is what I'm looking for, you can't be an advocate. You can't even luck into something for me. But if you know somebody warmly enough, trust them enough, hey, why not just make sure, by the way, just so you know, when you're out there, this is what I do. Let me know if you have,
if you hear about that opportunity or hear someone who's having those issues.
Let
me know. Let them know.
So is word of mouth an actual strategy?
As a strategy,
or what's the tactic?
So when it comes to word of mouth, that is where you're making sure that you are front of people's mind. It kind of leads on very much from that leveraging warm introductions, because you are not going to be the person in the room when your introducee is there going, oh, by the way, my friend Scott actually does that thing, or my friend Andy does that thing. I can introduce you. And it's creating that comfort for someone else to say, talk to them. So it leads on very well from that leveraging warm introductions, I think, is creating that word of mouth scenario.
I think this is one of the things that is often where a lot of businesses start, and a lot of businesses are able to get past that initial growth stage relying purely on word of mouth. And then I think they neglect it and forget about it unnecessarily, unfairly, and improperly. When as your company grows, you have that many more ambassadors across your employee base, across your client base. And it is about making sure that the brand is extended through all of your activities. So in my mind, word of mouth is one of the most effective selling tactics. And if you're not intentional about supporting it, you're missing huge opportunities.
That's right. I mean, both of us to some extent have our customers actually published publicly on our websites. So, and I know for a fact that many of my prospective customers actually talk to them and ask them, what's it like working with Andy? What's it like? Is it possible? And I'm sure yours do that as well. And it's maintaining those relationships in a good way, delivering a good service, so that they are happy to be an advocate and give a positive word of mouth about your business.
Absolutely. You can keep the mic. Tell us about cold calling and door knocking.
Well, this is how I started out my career, and I used to really enjoy this. I'd go, right, where's the industrial estate that has the majority of the types of businesses that would typically be my customers? When I started out in logistics, I was like, okay, right, which are the companies that have these big products and big things going in and out and loading bays and things like that. So I then go to those industrial estates, and I'd literally go around and knock on the door. People would come downstairs and they go, what do you want? And I just explain why I was there and give them the information and maybe go away. not trying to actually sell
Right.
there and then. And that was the mistake that a lot of my colleagues did, is that they'd go there and they'd try and do the whole pitch to the person who answered the door or to the receptionist or anything like that. And it didn't go anywhere, and
Right.
it wasn't likely to go anywhere. But if you can just let them know that you exist, just like we were saying, give them the information, tell them that you're out there, you're someone else. And the amount of people who called back, it was incredible. And then you go in, you have a proper conversation. It doesn't necessarily always turn into business, but you've opened a door in a safe way that intrigues them and interests them enough that they want to actually get back in touch and arrange a proper meeting, which is what you really want. And so that is forgotten about very much now, that physical cold calling. It's not always practical for every business, but it's the same principle. Don't call up people and try and give them your whole sales speech. Call them up and let them know that you exist, and open that door for them to have a proper conversation with you.
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, we're calling it cold calling and door knocking. And I think that, obviously that evokes the traditional, like literally knocking on a door, picking up the phone and dialing through a list. But I think this is also about, we can't spam people, but, sending a direct email if you know the person's contact information, or doing a connection and an outreach on LinkedIn, whether that's a message on LinkedIn or a video message, which is highly effective. But I love what you said. It's not about selling at this point. No. This is about awareness. This is about, hey, listen, I happen to be working with one of the other businesses in this building, and I wanted to just make sure that you knew who I was as well. If you got any questions, you might want to pop upstairs and talk to them about our relationship. If you happen to be at this point in sort of your business in evolution, happy to schedule a more in-depth conversation, something to that extent. It's about, it's not about trying to convince somebody when you're doing this. This is about a mass appeal, and you're looking to find the one person who happens to be aligned, or willing to take a moment, and you've got to have some sort of exchange of value. So
absolutely,
we talk about this all the time. Yes, you can just sort of make sure they're aware, and you give a business card or whatnot. But maybe listen, you may not be at this stage yet, but I want to make sure you know that we've got some resources. Here's a webinar recording. Here's a document. But it's got to be useful,
valuable. So, exactly. It's got to give them something and inspire them to want to meet with you and talk to you.
Yeah. Collaborative partnerships. We've got account-based marketing, account-based selling on here too. I was going to tie those together, but I guess they're separate enough. So let's stick with partnerships. Talk to me about the right way to deploy collaborative partnerships as a selling tactic.
Yeah. From my perspective, it's one of the most valuable ways to build strong relationships with a wider network, because very often, if you can find a business that complements your business, and you are essentially serving those same customers, then working together to offer a bigger, more comprehensive and more reliable solution in a way for the customer, so they then have a single point of contact, or they have a wider package or a greater network and access to greater resources, then this is providing significantly more value to the end customer who needs those solutions.
Right.
If they don't need the solutions, it makes no difference at all. But having those partnerships and being prepared to reach out to companies that may, on the surface, look like they're competing because they're dealing with the same customers and things like that, and they're doing similar things, can be a bit scary. But if you're smart about it and you do it in the right way and do it with the best intention, then you can build very strong relationships and build very strong customer solutions.
Yeah, you're right. I think that for the partnership scenario, it is about being really clear in the partnership about what the exchange of value is between the two of you.
Absolutely.
What is it that I bring to the partnership? What is it that you bring to the partnership? How can we leverage each other's strengths? And it's not often a perfectly balanced equation.
Never.
You may offer me something more than what I can offer you in return. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't have value for, the person sort of getting quote unquote less value. They're still getting more value than they would get without the partnership. And I think in the long run, it benefits everybody. So I think it's really important when you're doing a partnership approach to be really clear with each other about what does it mean? What are the sum of the parts? What does that mean together? How is that and how are we going to articulate the combined value? in addition to the individual contributions. And then you've got a great opportunity to build a little bit of a business plan, and go to market together or independently with some resonance and support from the other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
completely right. Completely right.
My phone
Account-based
marketing, right? The last one. All right, take it away, Andy.
So account-based marketing is, I don't know if it falls under relationship selling, but nonetheless, it is very much about building that tailored, focused solution. So understanding your customer's business better than they do, providing value to them, and making sure that you're targeting what you're doing in the right way to the right people, and giving them the right information, providing constant value to make them aware of who you are, what you do, why you do it, why it's a value to them, and actually tailoring it, not just going, oh yeah, these types of customers or this type of business. No, it's actually that specific customer, and sometimes that specific department, and sometimes that specific person, if you know them well enough, within that business. So it can really, really go down. And account-based marketing is sometimes mixed up with just normal marketing, but given the title account-based marketing, but it's not. This is really, really highly focused, highly targeted marketing. And now I'm talking about it, I realize that it is very much part of the relationship, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think what for me, what's the hurdle, the friction that I've always that's stopped me from doing this in the past is it implies that you're putting a lot of energy into prospecting. It's not even a lead. It's not even a hot lead. You have no idea whether or not you can get any traction. You know that there's that customer by name and some people that in those jobs that you can identify by name that would fit your ideal customer profile, but you have no idea necessarily if they need what you've got, or and if they do, if they need it right now. And so you're going to put a lot of energy into building up the story, figuring out the right person or people to reach out to, making those overtures, trying a few times, getting a little bit further along. And I think what finally clicked for me in taking this approach was the understanding that if you can do this and structure it and organize it and build it for one of your clients, the only difference between leveraging all of that hard work and deploying it again for another prospect is the name of the business.
Yeah, exactly. It's that slight tweaking to those individual, but once you know your customer and you know your customer type and you know everything that's going on in their world, it's so much easier to then replicate. Yes, it's a lot of work up front and it takes a lot of time. It's hard, but it's so worthwhile.
And you know what? I put a lot of energy into broader marketing tactics that are no less effective.
No,
right?
Exactly.
Yeah. And so I think that this doesn't, if it's your only pillar, it's higher risk, but there's no reason that you can't make this, one tool in the toolbox.
That's right. And I think when it comes to account-based marketing, I'm not going to labor the point anymore than I already have done. But put the time and effort into it and give it a go, because you'll see the results. And it will be very valuable. That's it. I think we've
that was our list.
Covered the list there quite well. I think we've given a broad understanding of relationship selling and opportunities and ways of doing it, from very, very vague relationships right the way through to highly targeted, very specific relationships. And these are all not standalone things. It's not either or.
Right.
These are all things that should be as part of your sales process and as part of the mix of what you're doing.
What I like about the way we've broken it down is there are so many different ways to do relationship selling, and I think we sometimes just even I forget about that. Oh yeah, right. Why?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's right. And the easy one that gets dropped off, of course, is the cold calling and
Yeah.
knocking on doors.
No, seems to be the one that nobody likes to do, but we've also seen it work really well when somebody kind of gets on a roll. So
exactly. So if you want to hear any more about relationship selling or listen to any of our old episodes, go to tandtimbits.com where you can find everything that you would ever need. Scott, thank you very much.
Thanks,
Been a pleasure.
Andy. All right, thanks everybody.
Okay.